Willkommen. I believe that's welcome in German. Today is August 13th, 2020. You are listening to Counterculture with Aaron Lujan. Today is the top news stories for August 13th, 2020. Kamala's corrupt credentials, BLM attacks Children's Hospital, and mask fights. I think I actually changed the title about 5 seconds ago, so forgive me for the inconsistency. What really happened? Unfortunately, we're going to start off with tragic news, but I have really good news. I actually have 3 really cool pieces of good news, so bear with me, guys. Neighbor reportedly rushes 5-year-old boy playing outside, puts a gun to his head, and executes him. Wilson, North Carolina, a young 5-year-old, handsome, beautiful young man, Cannon Hinant, was playing outside his father's house when a 25-year-old Darius N. Semmens went over to him while he was on his bike playing in front of his house with his young brothers and his mom and his dad, I believe, the whole family. And a neighbor, 25-year-old, ran into the house, came back with the gun, put the gun to his head, and killed him. What's interesting about this is there's no reason to think it's race motivated, but had the roles been reversed, had it been a black kid shot by a white guy, unprovoked, what do you think would the mainstream media go with? They did it with George Floyd with no evidence of racial motivation. Can you imagine had it been a 5-year-old child? And I want to put the blame on the mainstream media and the culture for pushing an anti-Anglo, anti-white narrative. Yes, I call Caucasians Anglos because I just think it's more appropriate. Mad World News. Kamala launched political career with 120,000 patronage job from lover Willie Brown. I don't think I'm breaking any news that Creepy Joe picked Kamala Harris as her vice president, but I want to just go over a couple articles to kind of give us some insight, a peek into who this person is now that she's under the spotlight. Coffee break. So Willie Brown, the former mayor of San Francisco, a powerful politician, I believe in the 80s and the 90s, had an affair with Kamala Harris when she was then a young 30-something. And in that relationship was given a cushy job on the California Medical Board, which was notorious for just being a place where people repaid political favors back. It was her very first significant political position, in which she was paid today's equivalent, I believe, $120,000. She missed 20% of the meetings, and I can already hear my son screaming at me. This is counterculture, folks. So it's interesting that this person started her career out of an affair and a cushy, corrupt political payback job. And we're going to find out more because Government Slaves released an article saying WikiLeaks posts 137 documents on Kamala Harris hours after she is named Joe Biden's running mate. So that'll be interesting. If we remember the last big WikiLeaks dump, it was the Podesta emails, which I believe ended the candidacy for Hillary Clinton in 2016. WikiLeaks is at it again, another major dump. This will be very interesting. Hopefully this will disrupt any chance of Biden taking the election. The Federalist is reporting Kamala Harris was ringleader in Brett Kavanaugh character assassination attempt. Of course, I covered this extensively during the Kavanaugh hearings, and I do remember falling into hate with Kamala, although I don't hate her, but I'm trying to joke here. She was disgusting to me in how she attacked Brett Kavanaugh and her disregard for our systems and our processes. She interrupted the proceedings in an attempt to shut him down. She essentially had a line of questioning that cornered Brett Kavanaugh into a perjury trap. She's absolutely corrupt. Breitbart's re-releasing a video, once laughing hysterically after joking about killing President Trump. I don't know what kind of person it takes to genuinely, sincerely, hysterically laugh at the idea of murdering someone. I do remember another person doing it. It was the psychopath former Secretary of State. We came, we saw, we conquered Gaddafi. We remember all that. These are the people that we're dealing with, folks. I'm here to wake you up. These are not people that you would want your children to be babysit with. Okay? The Western Journal is reporting that Kamala Harris's ancestors were slave owners. Will the left cancel her? Jamaica Global published a lengthy ancestry article written in September 2018 by Harris's father, the prominent economist and Stanford University professor Donald Harris, exposing the fact that she has direct lineage to slave owners in Jamaica. Can you imagine? I know I always do this, but I have to draw these comparisons. If Trump had literal slave owner ancestry, could you imagine the pandemonium? But I don't think the left will cancel her. I think she'll get the old-fashioned monopoly, get out of jail free card, because it only goes one way in this culture, in the cancel culture. Breitbart News, Kamala Harris jailed nearly 2,000 people for marijuana offenses. So for all of you peace-loving, green-loving liberals, yeah, dude, just three for man. If you vote for Biden, you're voting for one of the most anti-marijuana candidates ever on the ballot. Non-violent, petty marijuana offenses. She put these people in jail, folks. So your hatred for Trump must be really big. It must be bigger than any of your quote-unquote principles, knowing that. But my issue with this is that she is a corrupt politician, throwing people in prison, putting them in jail, not really respecting the idea of individual liberty and fairness and due process and all of that good stuff. Breitbart, Kamala Harris failed to prosecute priest sex abuse cases despite victims' pleas. The president of Government Accountability Institute observed in his book titled Profiles in Corruption, Abuse of Power by America's Progressive Elite, during her 13-year tenure as district attorney and then attorney general, Harris failed to prosecute even one case of pre-sexual abuse, though during that same period, at least 50 major cities had brought charges against priests. Her office, quote, would strangely hide vital records on abuses that had occurred, Schweizer revealed. Not to mention an unparalleled number of donations from high-level officials of the Catholic Church. Yeah. WorldNet Daily, hashtag Kamala, hashtag World. I'm excited, guys. Got a lot of coffee in me this morning. Woo! Exorcise the demons. Harris directly responsible for persecution of undercover pro-life journalists. I remember being enraged. I guess God was preparing me to fight Kamala Harris. I remember this vividly. We all remember David Daleiden. He was the Center for Medical Progress guerrilla journalist to the likes of Project Veritas, James O'Keefe-ish. He had undercover video with abortionists talking about having their hearts cut out of babies' chests while they were still beating. Monumental barbarism. Harris and successor Javier Becerra in California have pursued an ideological agenda using the resources of the state of California to destroy David Daleiden, who exposed all of this evil. So let's remember, never forget, or remember that Kamala Harris went after David Daleiden of Center for Medical Progress when he was exposing barbarians ripping the hearts out of children's bodies. Yes, hashtag Kamala Harris. I'm not going to let this woman go. She's disgusting. Breitbart is reporting pro-life leaders say Biden-Harris most pro-abortion presidential ticket in history. Oh yes, if they get into power, everything that Trump put in is going to be ripped, reversed, and we're going to get it double hard. Abortion on demand. Position in close ties with the abortion industry giant Planned Parenthood. And I wanted to quote the great David Daleiden, and I actually want to get him on the show. I think this guy is a hero. He's an amazing person. And let me find his tweet. It's a bad joke. Oops. It's a bad joke for Kamala Harris to say she's running for, quote, truth, justice, decency, equality, freedom, and democracy when she weaponized the powers of law enforcement to attack my First Amendment civil rights as a citizen journalist at the bidding of her @PP Act donors and backers. Yes, she's not only anti-life, but she's anti-First Amendment, clearly. Shifting subjects, let's get into BLM land. This is going to be fun. The Patriot Post has an article out. BLM Chicago, that's not looting. It's just reparations. We had a Black Lives Matter leader in Chicago, I guess yesterday, quoting about looting, saying this is reparations. Anything they wanted to take, they can take it because these businesses have insurance. Yes, but it's not just some unknown, unnamed Black Lives Matter leader that's echoing Marxism. It's actually Michelle Obama. The Western Journal has an article out. Michelle Obama suggests the COVID pandemic should make America rethink, quote, how wealth is distributed. Michelle was speaking to the Washington Post opinion columnist Michael Norris on an episode released Wednesday on her new podcast, saying, how COVID should make us think how wealth is distributed. When's the last time we heard about wealth redistribution? Hashtag Marxism, hashtag communism. They're really pushing this podcast. It's in my recommended podcast list on Spotify. I get push notifications from Spotify, hashtag too much caffeine, about the Michelle Obama podcast. Sorry, guys, I keep forgetting. Incredible. Will Spotify push notify the entire country about counterculture? That'd be pretty cool. Anybody know how to hook that up? Hashtag holler at your boy. Western Journal has an article out. Police chief resigns after being investigated for criticizing Black Lives Matter on Facebook. So you can rip beating hearts out of children. Totally cool. Actually, taxpayers will pay for it. But if you're the Johns Creek police chief, Chris Byers, who wrote on Facebook, I do not support the Black Lives Matter as a movement as it seems to glorify the killing of my brothers and sisters. I have also been asked if I will take a knee at these protests. I take a knee of surrender to my Lord and Savior alone. I will, however, stand with you and protect your rights to protest and have your voices heard, and I will bow down to pray with you. Yes, that is grounds for being fired as the chief of police. Reminds me of the chief of police in Simpsons. Meh. Go get him, boys. Twitchy's reporting. Truly unconscionable. Chicago looters target Ronald McDonald House because sick kids' lives don't matter, apparently. Yes, the Black Lives Matter mob in Chicago targeted the Ronald McDonald House, a children's hospital with children dying of cancer with their families and medical professionals. Hashtag frontline heroes. So I guess my question now to those who support Black Lives Matter, do you stand by this? Is this justifiable to attack children with cancer? Is that honoring the memory of George Floyd? Is that progressing society against systemic racism and institutional racism, attacking children with cancer? I don't know. Someone please explain this to me. And I want to get a BLM activist on the show to discuss these issues. And I'm going to reach out to some of you guys. Please oblige. If you're not yeller, what are you, yella? I'm as serious as cancer when it comes to getting a BLM person on. This show's gonna get very good, guys. Daily Caller has an article out. Hashtag we're just getting started. Abolish the United States of America. Radical Youth Liberation Front, active in Portland, encourages violence, explicitly rejects peaceful protesting. Yeah, so now we're getting into, 2 months into this. We've had opportunity now to investigate the money, investigate the connections. Thank God for the News Foundation over at the Daily Caller. They're finding out that these organizations on the ground in Portland, on the ground in Seattle, are openly cheering for violence, explicitly rejecting peaceful protesting. Their platform is to abolish the United States as we know it, and we have names. It's called the Youth Liberation Front. So they're active, they're involved. This is not sweet, nonviolent protesters, as Wolf Blitzer on CNN would like to make you believe. The Daily Caller has an article out. Portland DA says protesters won't be charged with harassment, rioting under new policy. No, the DA will not prosecute those charged with interfering with a police officer, disorderly conduct, criminal trespassing, harassment when it's classified as a misdemeanor. Time out. Sorry, God. I have a bad gag reflex, especially in the morning. So I promise I don't smoke a pack a day. I've had this since I was like 15 in the morning. Sorry. Or they will not persecute rioting unless accompanied by one of the three acceptable charges. So we're literally witnessing, ladies and gentlemen, the dismantling of law and order in our country in real time. We have the district attorney's office in Portland saying they're not going to prosecute crime. Gannett is reporting it's now a felony in Illinois to assault a retail worker who is enforcing face mask rules. So this article shows it's not so much an interest in being nice and kind and lowering the bar. It's actually agenda driven. Hashtag agenda. Because if you attack a retail worker who is the quasi corporate government enforcer of tyranny, the proxy enforcer of tyranny, the corporate employees, like the guy who screamed at me and called the police on me at a Sprint store in Colorado Springs, literally the first day of the mandate. You can now spend up to 10 years in prison. And you know how assault is defined? Assault could just be a tap on the shoulder. So now in the state of Illinois, if you just take your finger and kind of just push somebody and the judge decides that it's assault, and with this new change in law in Illinois, you can be charged with a felony. Yes. So we are seeing this get crazy. Government slaves. California Black Lives Matter leader charged with 5 felonies, faces 15 years in prison. This was good news, speaking of prosecutions and charges in law and order. So thank you, California. The DA will not... Oops. No, that was another note. CBN News... Great news. There's a quote in the Bible. I'm going to butcher it. I should have had this prepared before I got on the show. It's that as evil increases, so does good. You know, the boat rises with the tide, as they say. And so while we're having all of this corruption and evil, there is breakthrough of goodness and righteousness and light coming out of the former CHOP of Seattle, the former Chaz. If you remember the former short-lived nation of Chaz. In replace of that, CBN News is reporting salvations, healings, miracles, and baptisms. Seattle revival thrives despite angry protesters shouting, "Hail Satan." Government leaders voiced support for outdoor protests in recent months. And so as a result, the church went out and started worshiping God, started water baptizing people who wanted to accept Jesus in their heart and knew they needed a savior and direction in their life. There was miraculous healings. People walked away miraculously healed because God does work in environments of faith and when the Holy Spirit pours out. The church refused to be intimidated and God kept pouring out, quoted one of the pastors. There was a group of Satanists who wanted to troll the event, of course, because we don't fight against flesh and blood. We fight against powers and principalities in the spiritual realms. They cut the generator off and chanted "Hail Satan," trying to drown out the worship music, trying to drown out the baptisms, but it ensued and goodness won in that place. Jesse Green started the Seaside Evangelical Movement, Saturate OC, on July 3rd in Newport Beach, and it has now grown and is starting to spread like wildfire throughout the country. Can someone say hashtag revival? I hope so. Let's pray. Maybe we're in the midst of a new revival. WorldNet Daily is reporting unnerving Occupy radicals now plan White House siege. Yes, the White House is now being planned to go under siege by militant radical leftists like the Youth Liberation Front, for example. The activist group behind the Occupy Wall Street protests 9 years ago, Adbusters, is planning a 50-day White House siege next month, drawing wind from the hashtag MeToo, hashtag BLM, hashtag Extinction Rebellion, and protests against Trump's lethal bungling of coronavirus will inspire a global movement, a systemic change, a global spring, a cultural heave towards a new world order, the activists say in a tactical briefing posted by Adbusters magazine. Yeah, so now they're just openly announcing that the BLM movements and the anti-Trump movement is a new world order. Are you awake yet? All the people who rolled their eyes at me and unfriended me on Facebook and uninvited me to parties and walked away from me like I had cooties between 2004 and 2017, call it. Am I going to get any apology emails? I don't know. I'm not expecting any, and I don't really want any from you guys, but it's all good. I'll still be your friend if you want to come back and be my friend. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution has an article out. Stone Mountain braces for another armed protest. Speaking of armed protest, I think this one, you guys, could kick off a shooting part of a civil war in this country. I think we could potentially experience what was supposed to be at Charlottesville if we don't intervene spiritually and practically. Let me explain. This actually really concerns me, you guys, in all seriousness. If we don't remember or not aware, Stone Mountain is a national park. I don't remember where it is, probably Georgia. And you had the Not Effing Around Coalition, which is a group of hundreds of black men who are claiming to be defenders of their race or something. It sounds like a very racist group, if you ask me. Can you imagine a bunch of white guys and burning crosses and huge hoods on their... Oh yeah, we already had that, and we have already denounced that. But here we are again. They just reversed the colors. They went to Stone Mountain armed, egging on the white militia, saying, come and get us, let's start a race war. Well, they've answered the call. Several far-right groups, including militias and white supremacists, are planning an answer rally on August 15th, and a broad coalition of leftist anti-racist groups are organizing a counter-demonstration. Folks, August 15th, in 2 days, we're going to have hundreds of armed black militia face off with hundreds of armed far-right groups sprinkled in with a couple white supremacists. Pray for Stone Mountain. Hashtag Stone Mountain. You heard it here on August 13th, 2020. Excuse me. Shifting gears to the elections, the Western Journal is reporting that Hollywood actress pushes bizarre conspiracy about Trump supporters stealing mail trucks. She was in the movie Halloween, some washed up boomer who's irrelevant. I guess got her minute of fame back in the spotlight by tweeting a picture of a U.S. postal van being towed and saying, is this Trump stealing the election? And the only reason I bring this up, you guys, is I always feel like, psychologically speaking, people and groups will blame their opposition if they're guilty of the crime. I think the best example of this is people who are cheating on their spouse or their significant other will generally start hurling those accusations themselves at their innocent spouse or significant other because of their guilt. Any of my psychologist friends can name that. I just see that happen a lot, and I think it's a part of human nature. And I want to suggest that the left is planning on stealing the election, so they're getting ahead of it by saying Trump's going to steal the election. And we're seeing that sprinkled in. I read the news every day, and I see this consistently in the background. Trump's stealing the election. Mail-in votes is what we need to do. And now we got Bernie Sanders joining calls for resignation or removal of the Postmaster General, according to Truth Out Stories, saying that the Postmaster General that Trump appointed, his actions and his alleged conflicts of interest do not suggest are examples of bias and corruption. I suggest it's not. I read the article. There was nothing concrete that Bernie Sanders or the Postmaster General's accusers made that could even imply that he was biased and going to throw the election. The only closest thing they had was that he had relationships with competitors of the United States Postal Service. I don't know if that meant he was a stockholder or used to work for these companies, but it just looks like desperate attacks to, again, demonize Trump and the election and try to get it in people's heads that if the election is going to be stolen, it's going to be Trump. Again, the media is a weapon. Warfare, psychological warfare. It's actually been legalized to propagandize the American public. I'm not here to propagandize the public. I'm here to tell the truth and counter the narrative. Daily Caller's got an article out. Trump, if I don't win the election, China will own the United States. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence announced that both China and Russia were attempting to interfere with the 2020 elections. Russia in support of Trump. China, Winnie the Pooh, clearly in support of Creepy Joe. That was an interesting tweet. Trump is telling the truth about the connection with Chinese. He just keeps it really simple. kindergarten level. I mean, he's got to put a big peg in a big hole. And I don't know who published this article because I forgot to put the source. China increases military drills as tensions with the USA heat up. So now, here we go again. I talk about this every podcast. We're already at war with China. Now we have articles coming out where they're starting to admit it, and we're starting to see military action on behalf of the Chinese. Live fire exercises by the Chinese military near the U.S. island of Guam. The U.S. sent 2 aircraft carrier strike groups on rare dual carrier exercises in the South China Sea twice in the month of July. China military drills in East Asia. Recently, there was a visit by the U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar to Taiwan this week, and all of that action was condemned by the Chinese party. They talk a lot like the United States used to talk in the 80s and 90s as a world leader. Remember, the U.S. would say, we don't like that this country did that. We don't like that that country did this, because we were a superpower and we were in charge. And now China's talking that way. China. Shifting gears to wonderful coronavirus. Hold on, water break. I need to purge the caffeine out of my body. NBC's got an article out. Coronavirus cases lead over 800 to quarantine in Georgia school district where masks are not required. So apparently there was a report of a kid that had tested positive. They shut down the whole school. All 800 kids had to quarantine. Obviously, the media leads with this story because they want to make sure that you know that masks were not required in that school. So look at what happened. Somebody came down with the virus, and then look what happened. We had to quarantine everybody. See, you guys? See, says CNN, wear your damn masks. Come on, man. The Federalist is reporting, speaking of public schools, Fairfax public schools tell parents to stop educating their kids while school is banned. Last week, I reported that teachers' unions wanted to ban long-distance learning for reasons that I cannot explain. What's really going on, you guys, with this whole let's oppose it? The article's a little misleading. The title of the article is a little misleading. Technically, what the Fairfax Public School District is telling their parents is not to hire tutors anymore. I really wanted to keep this under 30 minutes, you guys. The world is so crazy that I'm already at 28 minutes, and I am about 2/3 done. So it's going to go a little over probably 40 minutes, so buckle up. It's going to get better, and we have good news at the end of this. There is a lollipop and a light at the end of the tunnel and a pot of gold. The Federalist, what really happened is reporting that Putin says Russia's health ministry has approved world's first COVID-19 vaccine. His own daughter has been vaccinated. Countries have already begun standing in line to get the vaccine. So will we buy it from Russia? How will the mainstream media respond? I have a good feeling that they're going to ignore this. They're going to talk about how great and virtuous. We finally elected the first Black, Jamaican, Asian person, while ignoring the fact that hundreds of countries purportedly are getting in line to get the vaccine for COVID, while the U.S. is still, has the population in a media bubble telling them that, oh, everybody's dying and we got to wait for the vaccine from the pharmaceutical companies that you gave hundreds of millions of dollars in your tax money to. AP's reporting New York's true nursing home death toll cloaked in secrecy. If we remember, the nursing homes in New York were a bloodbath. Dying. Everybody was dying. New York only counts residents who died on nursing home property and not those who are transported to hospitals and die there. And there was a woman who wanted to testify. I think her mother or her father had died in the nursing home. And she believes that Cuomo took her off of the bench so that she couldn't testify because apparently she's got the juice. So stay tuned. Cuomo might be a mass murderer. NewJersey.com is reporting town votes to rescind license of New Jersey gym whose owners repeatedly defied coronavirus restrictions. John McCann called some of the information presented in the hearing about the gym as goofy and obnoxious. He called it something out of George Orwell. So essentially, if we remember, there was a gym in New Jersey. They defied the orders. They said, we're not going to play along. We're Americans. We're free. We need to make our need to make a living. They were shut down. They were arrested. They were, I guess, let off on bail. They went back to their gym. They kicked open the doors like the buff alpha masculine men they are, and all the meatheads went in and started hitting it hard because hashtag leg day every day, right, guys? Well, the bottom line is Trumbetti, one of the owners, we are fighting for our constitutional rights. And he thought the hearing was something out of George Orwell because apparently the information was about the gym was they were being called goofy and obnoxious. That was the reason why the city voted 5-1 to rescind their license. I don't think you need a license to operate a gym, but I mean, technically, legally you do, but you shouldn't have to, is my point. WorldNet Daily, now government orders workers to wear masks even when they're home alone, by themselves, in their house. The Washington Examiner reported the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources told workers to wear face masks even during their Zoom meetings. You guys, this is not about flattening the curve anymore if the government's asking you to wear a mask at home by yourself. If you think you can get coronavirus by yourself in your house, we have a long ways to go for you. Find a local church and get prayed over because this is because your mind has been captured. I think any reasonable person at this point is going to say, yeah, why am I being forced to wear a mask at home by myself for a Zoom meeting? This is about control, and this is about power. Yahoo News, family removed from Southwest flight after 3-year-old son with autism would not wear a face mask. Kicked off the flight, Southwest stands by their decision. I thought that was the friendly skies. Apparently not so friendly towards children with autism. What is more important is the fact that this little boy, who tragically was probably vaccine damaged, is now getting kicked off flights due to the tyranny. This family is getting their ass kicked, and I'm not happy about it. It really pisses me off. An autistic kid, his mother said that he couldn't have anything touch his face, the poor boy, because it bothered him. He's autistic. I will not fly Southwest. IJR is reporting Cuomo calls on the NYPD to step up and enforce social distancing guidelines in bars and restaurants. Yes. Let's go ahead and let them loot. Let's go ahead and let them riot. Let's go ahead and paint Black Lives Matter in front of Trump Tower. Let's sit in our cars and watch 11-year-old girls get beat to almost death by a mob of people, which I reported on 2 episodes ago. But we got to get the cops out in the bars. And guys, 6 feet. Where's your mask? The Financial Survival Network, Florida sheriff bans deputies, employees from wearing face masks. God bless Florida. Florida's always crazy, and this is good crazy. The sheriff has effectively banned. You have to leave the building if you are wearing a mask. I quote the sheriff, in light of the current events when it comes to the sentiment and or hatred towards law enforcement in our country today, this is being done to ensure there is clear communication and for identification purposes of any individual walking into a lobby, the sheriff argued. That's awesome. That is such good news. That is so cool. And we need to have that catch on to other sheriff's departments, because if the sheriff's departments start doing that, it's going to change the cultural tide towards mask wearing, is what I believe. The Federalist is reporting governors can't use coronavirus to indefinitely declare a state of emergency. This is good stuff, you guys. I'm going to get into the legal juice here. Legally, the executives are operating pursuant to their emergency powers. Legally, the executives are authorized to declare a state of emergency. So we give governors unilateral, I say unilateral, but I should say tyrannical leverage power in the event of an emergency to declare that emergency, which activates the emergency plans that the state and those local municipalities have already put into place and prepared for, and then transfers significant control of the agencies and of the government in the hands of the governor and the governor alone. Although it varies by state, the authority is typically quite broad. And generally, you guys, these emergency powers are held on for 30 to 60 days. They're temporary situations, hurricane, flood, civil unrest. But COVID is being used to push this indefinitely. So essentially, what the article explains to us is that state legislatures must begin to declare the end of the emergency and to rebuke the governor's power grabs. So if we want to dismantle this tyranny and nip it in the butt, as my mom used to say, right now, hashtag Black Coffee Break, we need to have some pressure on the state legislatures. And there needs to be a groundswelling organic movement at the state level to put pressure on legislatures throughout the union and take away the power from Newsom, from Polis, from Cuomo, from Grisham, Lujan, and all of these tyrannical governors. If you examine any of the lockdown or mandatory masking orders, you will largely see a relatively formulaic approach. First, the edict will recite the facts that support the claim that there is an ongoing catastrophe. Then it will list the legal authority, and then finally the resulting mandates. That's been the formula that they've used, and I used to ask myself, how are they able to get away with it? Go to the Federalist and look for this article, Governors Can't Use Coronavirus to Indefinitely Declare a State of Emergency. Yahoo News is reporting, Sturgis motorcycle rally attendees lounge in bikinis, pack into bars, and mock mask wearers. Quote, it's like COVID does not exist here. I have some relatives who are bikers in northern New Mexico, and they go to Sturgis, I think, on a regular basis. And I kind of have a glimpse into that culture, and I love it. I mean, it's pro-America, it's real, it's fun, and it's part of the American culture that I think is going to keep us breathing. Like, just this freedom-loving, America, beers, Budweiser, Harley Davidsons, bikinis, bars, engines roaring. That's what I would call a positive mob. CNN's reporting that Steinmart files bankruptcy and will close most of its 300 stores. Another victim to the plandemic, the hashtag scamdemic, the COVID-19 84. ESPN's reporting Big Ten pulls plug on fall football season. So I'm not going to be able to watch my TCU Horned Frogs football team. The NCAA, according to ESPN, is going to pull the plug on the Big Ten football season. Sorry, sports fans. What really happened is reporting they've had enough of everything. Record numbers of Americans are giving up their U.S. citizenship. Bambridge Accountants reports that 5,816 people gave up U.S. citizenship in the first half of 2020, a 1,210% increase on the previous 6 months. So it didn't take Trump's election to get him out. It took BLM and the left to counter his presidency to get us out of the U.S., in my opinion, ironically, right? So all the good people are leaving, and apparently we're stuck with all the washed up Hollywood celebrities. Shifting gears, we're going to rapid fire through some news that has no relationship to the other, and then we're going to end on some really good news. The Blaze is reporting Democrat Ilhan Omar must resign. New evidence from nearly 36 Somalis reveals spree of felonies. Yes, felonies. 3. Marriage fraud by marrying her brother. But within that relationship, she also committed immigration fraud, student loan fraud, and tax fraud. It's been an open secret, except the secret isn't a secret anymore. It's just open. While that's all happening, no criticism from the corporate media. She gets all of her election funding on time, cash clears, and she wins her primary. 3 felonies. CBN's reporting, this is good stuff, Hallmark Channel, proudly presents new film featuring lesbian weddings. Yep, the culture is under attack. Hallmark, lesbian weddings. Hallmark, you just committed suicide. Everyone that I know who loves Hallmark are generally conservative Christian women. Maybe that's just my slanted, messed up worldview. I just can't imagine a ton of raging lesbians binging on Hallmark. They're probably at Sturgis. Federalist Papers is reporting helicopter assigned to move President Trump, top officials shot at, injuries reported. So there was a helicopter assigned to the 1st Helicopter Squadron, which supports the movement of the President of the United States and senior government officials to and from Andrews Air Force Base, where Air Force One is also based. That helicopter was shot at yesterday and had to make an emergency landing. Injuries are reported. Investigation is underway. So we have helicopters that the president is transported in now being shot at in America. Interesting times. What are they saying? What was that? Who was shooting at him? Did they think the president was in there? I don't know. Epic Times is reporting Washington state creates $40 million fund for illegal immigrants. Immigrants who can't access federal stimulus programs because of their immigration status will get anywhere from a couple $100 to $3,000 per family. You should be deported. You broke the law. You shouldn't be in this country. You need to go back to where you came from. I know that sounds racist. I'll say it again. You need to go back to where you came from and then apply legally if you love the United States so much. This is incredible, you guys, because the state of Washington has an $8.8 billion shortfall through 2023. And they're handing out money to illegal aliens, probably many of them criminal illegal aliens. Speaking of criminal illegal aliens, Los Angeles, CBS is reporting that the USGS, I think that's the United States Geological Society, California quake swarm increases chances of the big one. There is also a 19% chance of a bigger earthquake between a 5.5 or 6.9 within the next 7 days from August 13th. So California, put on your seatbelts. I know you're dealing with COVID. I know you're dealing with Black Lives Matter. I know you're dealing with a hot summer. I know you're dealing with fires, but get ready for the earthquake. Oh yeah. California's a movie, guys. An absolute nightmare. There is a 1% chance of a magnitude 7.0 or higher. Let's pray that they don't win the lottery. The Free Thought Project's reporting after multiple Fort Hood soldiers murdered, 2 more soldiers arrested in child trafficking sting. Hashtag Pizzagate. Hashtag Underground Railroads. Yeah, I hope that wasn't super annoying, you guys. The news comes on the heels of another sex trafficking bust that took place last month in which 6 Fort Hood soldiers were arrested in a sex trafficking sting. It also comes after a string of suspicious and outright violent and gruesome deaths of soldiers. I was reading this article, you guys. It was like body after body of soldiers from Fort Hood just being found dead, like all over the place, not getting reported at all in the media. And then after all these bodies are being discovered, we're now having soldiers from that same base being arrested for sex trafficking. What is going on in Fort Hood? I would love to know. I'm really curious. Epic Times. Good news, guys. World War II U.S. Navy vet from Georgia celebrates 100th birthday. And I just love seeing World War II vet because we're not going to see many of the World War II vets anymore. That was what they called the greatest generation. I get a little sentimental. Both my grandfathers served in World War II. I have these romantic ideas, and the true definition of romantic, not what maybe you think, romantic ideas about America. And that generation really embodies that. And we had James Davis, a veteran from Conyers, Georgia, turn 100 years old, and they're still among us. And that's why I thought it was good news. So happy birthday, Mr. James Davis, sir. Thank you for your service. Enjoy your 100th. Have a Bud Light like that other lady did who beat COVID. Business Insider. Speaking of illegal aliens, a dwarf planet between Mars and Jupiter has a salty ocean beneath its surface, making it a contender for alien life. So maybe this is psychological programming to tell us that aliens are coming to abduct us. No, I'm just joking. But I just thought that's cool, right? Science is awesome. I wish we could nerd out on science all the time. And I'm going to try to play the audio of this video. It's really, really sweet. The title is Just One More Kiss. Heartwarming video shows an officer saying goodbye to son before work. And I'm going to try to play the audio here. So give me 1 second. And the video, since most people are... no one's going to be able to see it because you're just looking at my mug if you're watching the stream or the video. But if you're listening to the podcast, it's a video of a little boy sitting in his garage with his mom behind him, and his police officer dad is in his uniform at his vehicle getting ready to go to work. Roll tape.
Okay, run. Run. I'll wipe your feet.
Oh, and then he gives him a kiss. One more kiss, Daddy. Before I cry, I want to thank you guys for joining me. That was a really cool video. Just reminding us, what is life all about? It's about our relationships. It's about our families. It's about being good people and fighting the evil that is among us. Good will prevail. Thank you guys for joining us. Today was August 13th, 2020. This was another episode of Counterculture with Aaron Lujan. Everything is housed at aaronlujan.com. Text your friends. Go to aaronlujan.com. Sign up for the text message alerts. I will more than likely be removed from some of these platforms that you're hearing me on. So in order for us to stay in contact, please go to aaronlujan.com and sign up for our text messaging alerts. So if they decide to purge me from the interwebs, I'll still be able to find you. Take care. Thanks.